Good afternoon, folks, and today we have the privilege of having the Phillips Seed Farms representatives from various parts of the country. We go from Wichita up to Norfolk, Nebraska, over to Malvern, Iowa, Manila, Iowa, over by Salina, Assaria, and Tesket, and other places. So Ted, the cameraman, is doing the work again today on the cameras, so we'll have a little fun with this. This is the first time the group has been out to this location in central Kansas. And so we're kind of looking forward. The last time we were here about 2 weeks ago, and it was early flowering at that stage. Today I see, just by first glance, we've come a long way on the pollination process. Instead of just having silks coming out of the end of the year, now we've actually seen some finished pollination with silks beginning to turn brown. So we know that we're moving into early roasting ear stage, and you can see some of these ears are already getting filled out. So it's good to see that. So we're going to talk about some basics, and then we'll probably field some questions at some point as well. In this plot, there are approximately 50 different hybrids that we'll be walking through, and they range anywhere from about 101 day up to about 116 day. And it comes from multiple genetic sources. And so again, that gives us quite a bit of diversity to look at. So again, there's different trait packages in that mix. And so when we go through here, we'll begin to see if there's any onset of any early disease, any insect feeding, where about in the pollination process we're at. And then just kind of have some general discussion about maybe what we're looking at. So first product today is an experimental that's 104 day. This is actually in its second year of testing, and you could tell it's 104 day. It's one of the earlier things in here, but you'll also notice those silks are dark brown, so it's really coming along in its pollination process. It largely is finished in that regard. I hate to do it, but I'm going to go ahead and pull an ear out of here at this stage, just to give an example of what we're looking at. Okay, so could you hold that? So, obviously, plant physiology 101 is every one of these silks goes down into a kernel. So the kernel essentially is the ovary, and the silk is the carrier of the male pollen to the female silk. So every corn plant has male and female parts, not to confuse with what we do in a production field, but in this type of a commercial production observation plot, obviously we're looking at hybrid pollination as opposed to inbred pollination. And so you can see that there's your roasting ear stage coming into that, and it's pretty good pollination for the most part. A little bit of tipping, nothing too bad. And now we're expecting this. We got plenty of moisture here. We'd like to have a little bit more, but this is furrow irrigated, and they will keep this up on the on the moisture levels. So we should have pretty good results here. So as you notice that the silks on the end of that turn brown, that signifies that the pollination is complete. And as it turns brown, we know that every one of those ovaries are turning into nice formed healthy kernels. So now when we're looking at this, there's a couple things that come to mind. Okay, what kind of an ear is this, and how many rows around? Are they deep kernels and such like that? Now in this case, this is kind of a narrow cob. It looks like it's only got about 12 rows. Let me count it. 16 actually, so beat my count by about what? About 35, about 16 by 35. So, that's not too shabby. About 400 kernels per cob, that's not too bad. By about 30,000 population, you can see where there's some potential yield even on 104 day in central Kansas. So this one made it through trials of last year to be retested, because we would actually like to have another early product in the lineup to kind of fill up sort of the gaps that we currently have. So if I break that in half, and obviously we're just full of milk. We're full of nothing is really turning into hard starch or anything like that at this stage. Relatively narrow cob, and we'll see if that kernel deepens at all. But first glance, it does not look like a particularly deep kernel. So how that translates into yield, obviously we'll see later. But those are the things we're going to note as we go through. Now, looking at the plant in general, this is a VT Double Pro as far as the trait, the GMO trait that's on this particular corn. And you see a nice dark green leaf. You don't see a lot of disease activity here. I see minimal feeding. Nothing that's going to cause us concern. Maybe a little bit of corn borer. But again, I don't see anything major in this. There's nothing disease-wise. You see a little bit of flecking, but again, nothing too big here. So, we'll note that, and then we'll just keep going to the next one after this. So, thank you.
Upright leaf pattern.
Yes, indeed.
2 rows or 4 rows?
All right, so this particular one, we go up in maturity a little bit. This is 108. So we got a little bit taller product, a little bit more of an upright leaf type, erect leaf type. This comes out, these first hybrids are going to come out of a particular camp that has a very good breeding program, and we do have some of their products in our lineup, and so we expect to see good things out of here, and they usually have some good things to show us. So I'm not going to say much more out of this. It's another VT Double Pro, above ground protection on those kind of things. And so again, very clean leaves. Looks like whatever trait's in here is doing a good job of keeping it clean as far as, just first glance. Now we got a long growing season to go, so there's still things that can happen here. So go to the next one. This is 111 day. So again, similar height to the 108 day. I mean, I'm not going to go through and really do a full dissection. I'm not going to walk through much, but more of an erect leaf type, very upright, very attractive plant. I guess we're looking forward to seeing these things come along. And in about another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we'll come out and start looking at at a little bit more of the early when starch begins to set in and come down on the milk line just a little bit. It's going to really move along. We got a lot of heat. A lot of growing degree accumulation is going to happen over the next week and a half. And so that's going to bring these products into maturity a little bit faster. But right now, we're definitely looking at a nice looking crop here. So here's another 111 day, also VT Double Pro. Pretty similar in height to the last we just looked at. All right. This next one is a Smart Stack, and this Smart Stack is 111 day as well. Very similar up erect leaf type pattern. Again, it has that nice dark green field appearance. Pretty clean. I don't see too much damage in here. When you see something like this, guys, this is a sucker. Sometimes you notice a tassel on that's putting kernels. Very common on a sucker, okay? Your question might be, well, is the sucker going to damage the overall yield? The answer is no. What it does do, it's the first thing that's going to die and dry up and fall back into the row, but it will not affect the yield off the mother plant. That's one of the things you've heard over the years probably of whether or not that's a pro or a con. It doesn't bother me in the least. You see that in some cases you'll see actually more well-developed tassel ears on a hybrid. This is not one that we would consider on that, but it did put an actual ear down here. Now whether that comes along and matures or whether that just stays like little knobby kernels remains to be seen. Suckers are bonuses. They're not necessarily drawbacks or anything positive either. So that's not something that really gives us any concern. All right, let's see what we got next here. It's 101 day. And so, wow. It actually, it almost looks like it ought to be a little bit, oh no, that's not either. That's 113 day, guys. Yeah. Oh, did I pass one? Oh, you snuck back in there. Another smart stack, 112 day, okay. You know, actually it's 112, that we switched the numbering systems on this.
All right.
Yep, you see that 0 on there, and that's when it was a 2020 release.
Okay.
And so it's actually 112 days, so. Yeah, I know, it's hard to decipher that sometimes, isn't it?
Yep.
So anyway, I guess, you know, smart stack, so you got a little below ground protection with that. And I'm not going to comment on the efficacy of the trait. Down here in central Kansas, corn rootworm is not the first thing that comes to our mind about being an issue. We're more concerned with things like western bean, cutworm. We'd be more concerned with things like corn earworm. And I mean, in really hot south wind type summers, we can be affected by spider mite. Those are kind of things that can come in and mess with us. Disease-wise, in central Kansas, we might be looking at things like southern rust. We might be looking at things like southern corn leaf blight, and amongst others. I mean, gray leaf doesn't happen down here a lot. It can. And northern corn leaf blight almost never happens down here. But in a certain type of condition, it can occur. It's just not common. So really, disease-wise, you know, we're normally not dealing with some of the guys like you guys up in Iowa. You do have issues with all of that kind of stuff. So we're not too concerned with anything that we've seen here. So let me ask you guys a question. We might as well have a little fun with this while we're here. So what diseases is fungicides going to help you on?
Rust.
Your fungus diseases.
So rust, and I'd say common and southern to a degree. Yep. What other diseases would be helped by a fungicide application?
You got gray leaf spot.
Gray leaf spot would be one that could be helped. Yep. Anything else? Well, let me reverse the question then. How about northern corn leaf blight? Does a fungicide help on that? Wow, you guys are quiet today.
No, that's aerial leaf.
What's that?
It's underneath the leaf.
Yeah, so it's not likely going to help that. So what about things like Goss's wilt? We didn't even talk about that yet.
No.
Doesn't really help there either, does it? So
Bacteria.
bacterial, yeah. Then there's also the new bacterial leaf streak. That's fun. We don't. Yeah, we've seen it down here, but I think up north they see it a little bit more often. Does a fungicide help that? No. So once again, you're talking about a bacterial issue. So yeah, we're not out of the woods when we're trying to raise a corn crop. It seems like any region that we go to, everything has got its battles it's got to face. So now this next one here that I'm going to be coming to is 113 day, and this is the first Tricepta. This is more of a multi-mode above ground trait, and this is one that we put into release, and we'll know this is PS 1372 tray, as we call it. TRE, short for Tricepta. And so this is one that will come along here, and we'll be anxious to come out and see how it progresses through the year here. So lot of, I can see there's going to be a lot of grain in this thing when it's all said and done. As these kernels continue to fill and as they come more towards maturity, it's going to be fun to see just how much we've got to look at there, but it looks pretty sharp right now. Okay, next one. This is another Smart Stacks, 113 day Smart Stacks, and similar in height to the last one we just looked at. I see a couple of gaps in the rows, and I'm not exactly sure what may have caused that, but we don't like to see gaps in rows. Just so you know, the portion of the plot that we're looking through right now is an observation plot, and so we don't take this particular type of a plot for yield. This is where we come in and probe and take people through and pull ears off and take ear counts and ear samples and take a look to see how the disease is, if there is any disease or any insect pressure. And so that's basically what we're looking at there. So All right, so let's keep moving. If you have any questions as we go, guys, make sure you pipe in. If you know, if we don't like what you say, we can always edit you out, right? So don't worry about it. Here's a 114 day, and this is a new VT Double Pro. That's a big fancy looking plant right there. I see another sucker here, another tassel here. Kind of a weird thing, but main ear looks good. Still got a little bit of pollination that it's still working on. It looks like the first year is primarily pollinated, and the second ear rather, is in the process of it. So I'm sure there's enough. Looks like there's some. See that? There's some anthesis going on there yet. So anthers are still there, dropping a little bit of pollen. So I'm sure they'll get taken care of as well. Here's another experimental 114 day. Another VT Double Pro. Yeah. So at this stage in the game, there are very minor things that you can look at to see a product differentiate. I mean, we haven't gone in through here and you know, really done any, you know, serious looks at it yet, and we haven't really done forensics of any kind of, really, is there any disease at all, or is there any insect pressure at all? But just from the outset, these rows are only 20 feet long, and so there's only going to be so much. If there's feeding, we don't really care about minor feeding. Minor feeding is not going to do anything to really keep the flow of moisture nutrients to build yield. It's if we saw a serious disease onset, a big rust onset, or Goss's wilt, or some kind of blight come in and really begin to shut down the plant's power, then we have some reason for concern. So at this stage in the ball game, it's not too big of a deal. So we're going to move into another camp worth of products. This is a Duracade 5122, and so that and the genetics are also out of that camp. So different trait, different genetics. This is has the Duracade rootworm event, as well as some above ground protection, so it's both above and below ground. This one's 107 day, I think. Yes, 107 day. And so looks like it puts on a pretty nice ear. Looks like it could potentially be showy. The shank isn't too long. I mean, we'll come out here again when it matures a little bit further and get a better idea, but right now it looks pretty healthy by, you know, the looks of it. And so we'll track that through as well. Here's a 108 day Viptera 3220. Viptera 3220 is an above ground insect protection. 108 day maturity.
It's an experimental still.
And this is still an experimental. Yep. Yep. So, and this is kind of one we're kind of looking at. Well, in the maturity that we're looking at to kind of keep strong. Right now, we're pretty strong in the 108 day range. We're not bad in the 107 day range. We'd like to see another 105, 106 day kind of pull up, but there's only so many of those in testing here. So, but we will be looking at a lot of data, including what we get out of the replicated plots, which are behind here. So here's another 108 day with a Duracade 5122. So again, above and below ground protection. I see another couple little tassel ears in there. Very erect leaf type. About down that row. Interesting for 108 day. 111 day Duracade 5122, and that's a pretty attractive product. It's got a nice plant structure to it. At immediate glance, looks pretty healthy. Attractive plant type. And then we'll come into another 112 day Duracade 5122. A lot of height to it. I like the structure a bit. It kind of opens up that row. It doesn't have quite as big of a canopy as some of the other stuff that we've taken a look at. Nothing we've looked at so far has any real serious issues on disease or insect pressure. So if anything, you might see just a little bit of leaf stripping due to wind. But beyond that, not a whole lot. So next one is 112 day Duracade 5122. Again, full above ground, below ground package. You notice an ear height difference on these two hybrids. This one's a full 4 to 6 inches lower than the last opportunity or the last product. Nice looking. 114 day. This is an experimental, and this is Agrasure 3120. So that's just above ground protection. And so again, very erect leaf style. Looks healthy again. We'll keep moving down the path here. This is 115 day here. I can see some potential in that too. There's good ear set. Viptera 3220, all above ground protection. Yeah, it is. Exactly. Here's 116 day. Looks like we picked up a few inches in height here. And this is a Viptera 3330, which has got an additional mode for above ground protection. I do like the canopy of this. It really covers that row nicely. It's got a little bit of pollination work to do yet, being 116 days, so obviously it's still coming along. But I think the pollen's present. You can see there's still pollen available. 105 day VT Double Pro. We moved into another camp. I see we kind of shaved off a couple inches in height, and but this is a different crossing standard altogether. Different females, different males from anything we've seen up to this point. So it's always interesting to see different approaches. I do see a little bit of corn borer feeding on the leaf, and again, nothing real serious, just probably the availability of the leaf out towards the end of the row. Here's 108 day VT Double Pro. Boy, that puts the ear right up there, doesn't it? That is one tall, high ear height kind of a deal. I think the bugs are beginning to like me too. It's got that unique flag leaf on the ear. Not every hybrid has that, so that's kind of interesting. If you're in the breeding circles, you probably have a little bit of an idea where that comes from. But anyway, 109 day VT Double Pro. That is one prolific looking plant right there. And look at the ear line, they're showing off a little bit even. That's this is one we'll keep our eye on. I can see it's pretty prolific on its ear and the way it sets it out there. And I wonder if that shank is just helping us show it off a little bit. But we'll kind of watch shank length. Shank length isn't always something you really want to see too long. It can actually cause problems later on with things like dropped ears or where they begin to swing and wind when they get fully mature, and maybe have an issue of leaf or ear abscission. We don't necessarily find that necessarily a good thing, but it might not have any problem at all either. So just something to keep an eye on. Okay, here's another 111 day Tricepta. So, you know, again, something to keep an eye on. I see a gap in the row there. 112 day VT Double Pro.
All right, thank you.
Nice wide leaf. Well, most of these things have been pretty clean, haven't they?
Mm-hmm.
113 day VT Double Pro. So I see a gap back in that row. We're not taking this for yield, it's just more of a noted thing. Yeah, yeah. Look here.
I don't see many gaps.
Yeah. 113 day on that one. Okay, now we got 114 day. This is one that we retested from a year ago. This is in this plot. This is the first PowerCore Enlist product, and if you remember, this is one that came close to the top a year ago in our trials. So this is one we'll be watching closely again. And you know, I don't know if you can necessarily see this, but there's a reason this thing is doing pretty good. I mean, I just want to show this to you real quick. You notice that ear line? You see there? And that's a pretty good ear set. Here's two on this one. So that's a nice ear line, good ear set. So again, we'll see how the actual trial comes out, but from an observation standpoint, I can see where it has a little yield attached to it. So
What is it,
PowerCore Enlist. Yeah, PCE PowerCore Enlist.
That's what I was
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for, right?
Yeah, that's your acronym. So And this one we normally call this a PCE, and I'm not sure what. I think we tested it before. HAW, which is another acronym, but not for. It's a type of power corn. So this is 114 day. You notice it's got pretty sizable plant. Keeps the ear up there. I mean, will it yield? Will it hang in there with some of the other things? I mean, it just, you know, at this stage in the game, you really never can really tell. I can tell you this, is there is some potential for yield in here. You know, for being in central Kansas, it's pretty fancy. So 108 day GBL, or what's known as Agershire 3010. And so there is no, there's not a multi-mode of insect above ground action. There's only one mode of above ground insect action, and so far no major attacks, so that's good. Looks like it's got some yield potential too for 108 day. Here's another 110 day product, which actually is being tested for the second year in a row, and it's 110 day. Again, it's another Agershire 3010, or GBL as we call it. And so 113 day GBL. This is the first time we've tested this one. So I see a couple of gaps back there.
Will these have the refuge in the bag, or would it?
No, GBLs will require a 20% structured refuge. Yep. So everything we've looked at up to this point, with the exception of these GBLs require 20% structured refuge. Everything else, the PCE, the Power Corn List, the Duracade 5122, the Viptera 3220, the Agershire 3120, all of those are either easy refuge or refuge in bag. And then the Double Pro is also refuge in bag. Yep. So here's another 111 day GBL. Yeah, he's got some height to him. Kind of an erect leaf type. 113 day Power Corn List. You notice that loopy leaf structure? That's a little different. You can definitely tell there's different set of genetics in that. See how those upper leaves loop over? Yeah. That's what's considered more of an open leaf style. Now here's one of our released hybrids. This is a 10711 Duracade 5122, and again, this is a product that the guys up in Iowa prefer, and if they're going to have rootworm up there, this 107 day kind of fits into that neck of the woods pretty well. So here's the next one, the PS0770 VPR, and that's actually got a lot of yield potential. I think that's going to have a good year. It's going to be fun to watch this. 2 years ago when we tested it, really pretty darn good. Last year it seemed like it got beat up just a little bit with derecho and things like that up in Iowa. But 2 years ago we also had good Kansas data on it. So it'll be fun to see what kind of data we get off of it. Here's one of our top selling hybrids here. This is 108 day. We call it PS0844 V32, which is a Viptera 3220. And very prolific 108 day. And they love it as you go north, and they like it down here. So we sell it down close to the southern Kansas border, all the way up to the Nebraska-South Dakota border. So into Iowa and then further west. So it's got a lot of flexibility, and we really like that. So, all right, moving on. PS1090, oh, I passed up PS0897 V32. And again, it's one of the higher yielding ones, especially down here in Kansas. It really, it's an artesian product. Artesian is their brand name for the water utilization trait. I was about to say a drought trait, but they really like to refer to it. It just utilizes the available water better. And so it might buy you a little time in drought, heat conditions. But this product has done well wherever we put it, and in replicated trials, it's equally as strong. So this is one of our top sellers as well.
Artesian uses 12 alleles to help with heat stress and drought. Yeah, throughout its entire life. Drought Guard uses 4 alleles.
Right.
That helps during flowering, which is important.
Which is important,
But
right?
the main difference between Drought Guard and Artesian is 12 alleles throughout the entire life of the plant, and then Drought Guard is 4 through flowering.
Good comparison.
You got a truckload of?
And so these two, actually both PSO 844 V32 and the PSO 897 V32 are Artesian. And so that's why they're become, I think, as popular as they have. So when Wes talks about an allele, it's what we might be the breeder's term to say trait, as opposed to a GMO trait. Traits were breeding, alleles and traits were breeding terms
There's
before
specific
they were
locations in the gene.
Yeah, so it's been, that's why this has been such a, I think, a successful trait, and the gene insertions have really shown up strong. These guys are real tough, and they show up in places where you wouldn't think necessarily they should. So at least means we sometimes can take them into a little bit tougher territory, and they'll still do equally as well. So as if they were being babied a little bit. So under irrigation or dry land, both very solid. So here's another Viptera 3220. We call this one PS 1091. So this is 110 day. This is a product that's kind of started to wane a little bit in its popularity, I would say. And it's not because it's not a good product. It has a little bit more susceptibility to some stock rots under more severe conditions. 1091 may not be the best under those situations, but as you get up into east central and northeast Nebraska, they still love it because you're starting to push maturity just a little bit up there, and it has a tendency to do well in its northern range. And so it can be moved south successfully. We don't maybe have quite the disease pressure down here, but when you do move into more of a severe disease pressure kind of setting, that's when we might warrant putting a fungicide on that product right there. So then we get one that's also been a pretty popular product for us, PS 1177 GBL. There's only one above ground insect gene on this, but there's both glyphosate as well as glufosinate, glyphosate Roundup, glufosinate Liberty. You can apply either one of those to this product, and it will not hurt the product. So that's become kind of popular. And then next to that is 1199 VPR, PS 1199 VPR. This one's also picked up some steam. It's 111 day, and it's really showing up in trials. I think it's running somewhere around 107% above plot mean. Now, when I use that terminology, this can be helpful at times. We're testing it against some of the most prolific genetics that are being offered by originators today. And so that means somebody somewhere are using those genetics. Somebody somewhere. And so this is probably somebody's favorite hybrid somewhere else too. They're available to seed companies in general, but not all of them choose this particular genetic. And the reason why is there's only so much room in a lineup that any particular company can have, right? Otherwise you end up with inventory issues and things like that. So what we try to do is we try to take out what we consider the best pick of the litter and run with that, because we know that most of the things that we choose based on performance down here will translate north pretty well. However, not everything that happens good up north will translate to the south, and that's just the way it works. We got a lot of different conditions. One of those conditions is we'll accumulate growing degree days about almost 50% more than even as far south as Lincoln, Nebraska to this spot. You say, well, gee, that's a lot. Well, we might end up with 4,000, they might have 3,000. And if you go up to Aberdeen, South Dakota, they might have 2,100. So there's about 3.5 growing degree days per mile from here all the way up to Aberdeen, South Dakota. So if you can kind of picture that, you know, we just happen to be in an area, you know, Salina is oftentimes one of the hottest spots in Kansas. And so there's a lot of growing degree accumulation on that particular area. So let's keep moving. Did we cover this one? I think so. Okay, yep. All right, here's one that's, now Wes, you were kind of liking the looks of this, and I can kind of see why. It's fairly prolific here too. This is one that we released a couple years ago called PS1260 V32. It's a Viptera 3220. Nice plant height. I like the structure to this, and I do not mind the fact that it's this tall. You notice the ear placement on this? It is not overly high. And so physics-wise, we got that kind of going for us as well. It'll be fun to see how this does. The first year we looked at it, it had some pretty nice yield results. It still kind of hung in there and did a pretty good job last year. But there are just so many things that were out beating up corn plants a year ago, so it's kind of hard to read. Okay, the next one is one that's also gaining in its sales interest as well. PS 1366 VPR VT Double Pro. Very attractive product. Look at the wide leaves on that. Nice dark green appearance. Looks really healthy to look at. So, yeah, 113 day. Gosh, I just wanted to keep our eye on. I think it's going to have a good year the way it looks. Here's PSF 138 VPR. This product's got a couple years on it, but it's still done really a good job. And especially as we go from southern Nebraska south, it seems like it's got a good yield history. And it's kind of like its neighbor right up here too. The PSF 148, 114 day. This one has done really well as in our Southland too, and continues to do well. And when you get in there and look at the ear line, you kind of begin to understand it. So nice grain quality, prolific ear set. We like to see that. So as much as I hate to show this, I will. I guess we could talk about this one a little bit. This is an experimental from another camp entirely. And I see they killed, I don't know what would have happened here, but obviously they had a conventional non-GMO in this box up until that spot. And so if you've never seen it before, this is what happens when you apply glyphosate or Roundup to a conventional non-GMO hybrid. You can see that it was very effective on killing the plant. So now this wasn't intentional, this was an accidental application, but you could see that obviously it's deader than a doornail. Nothing survived, and that's what happened. So really, we've only got one product left down here to take a look at. Let's see, this guy here. This guy here is a brand new experimental. It's a 114 day, pretty attractive looking guy. It's a Viptera 3110, and this is the only Viptera that requires a structured refuge. So at 20% structured refuge. I don't know if this particular product has had the conversion into a 3120 or Agrisure 3120 or Viptera 3220 Easy Refuge or a Viptera 3330 Easy Refuge. But from the looks of the genetic, it's pretty attractive. So it'll be fun to see. And we have these products in a replicated trial really right behind here. So it'll be fun to see what kind of yields we get out of that. So any questions, guys? We kind of pounded through that.
Looks like a good dual purpose.
Yeah,
There.
yeah, it does, doesn't it? Now look at the size of that leaf. Holy smoke! I mean, that's about as really wide leaf. Got a power plant. Be fun to see. Well, any questions, guys, before we wrap up? All right, appreciate it. Ted, thanks for being the cameraman.